Okay, hello and welcome everyone. So this video is going to be a solutions walkthrough video for the Fall 23 Principles of Microeconomics final exam. So what I'll do, same as a lot of the other solution videos, is I'll kind of scroll through all the exercises. There's 52 multiple choice questions. My thought is if I kind of show these on the video just for a second at the very beginning, then you can take screenshots or pause or whatever and work on them if you are doing this during a different term. There were 7 unique versions of the exam, seven unique versions, and I'll just do one of them here, although they basically had the questions in different orders, sometimes with small differences, but you'd be able to pick up on what would be the correct answer, correct rationale for your version, or for any other version of this, kind of based on what I'll do here is going to be the idea. Okay, so we're halfway through, which this has already got me bored. Hopefully it's not so bad. Maybe it's worse watching. Who knows? This is going to be a game matrix. Probably actually want to sketch that out rather than just do a screenshot. Oftentimes it's easier to be able to work those by hand rather than kind of mentally, because if you're doing an underline or check method or something to find best responses, sometimes it could be easier just to actually do it in the matrix. All right, so here we are through 37. I'm deeply regretting doing this at the moment. Had to be some better way to be able to do this, but I don't know. Hopefully it helps somebody. So, all right, so we've got 12 more. I don't know the optimal time to pause. I don't know. Or maybe if I just put this at the very end of the video and I jumped right into the solution, I said, hey, if you want to take this thing as your own practice quiz, just skip to the end to have a clean version. I don't know, whatever. So I didn't think of that in time, and I'm not going to redo this. All right, so here's the first collection of questions, question 1 through 3. Question 1, from the perspective of a single firm, such as Joe's Pizza, already operating in a market with imperfect competition, arguably the local pizza market, pizza by the slice market, we'd say is probably monopolistic competition, possibly oligopoly, certainly imperfect competition. Oligopoly if you're restricted to what's walkable, close to campus, but monopolistic competition more generally, I guess, for restaurants. What's the likely effect of additional entry by rivals on Joe's? We should expect the firm demand curve is going to be more elastic. This is coming from the entry-exit long run chapter for Stevenson and Wolfers. We're thinking, what's going to happen when more firms come into the market? Well, importantly, this is going to divert customers' attention. There's going to be more opportunities, more places to get pizza. And so as a result, demand's going to be diminished. We'll get a leftward shift of demand. But more than just that, it's also going to be more elastic as there's more substitutes for legitimate substitutes from the perspective of consumers. All right, consider the market for cherries grown in the United States. If trade restrictions are eliminated in Turkey, a country holding a comparative advantage in producing cherries is allowed to sell its produce in the U.S., what do we expect on the market for cherry pie filling made from cherries? That was a bad way to underline. Okay, so we want to pay attention to which market. I thought I had the highlight thing, actually, so whatever. We have a country with a comparative advantage. That means they are going to be exporters. So cherries will be imported into the U.S. That'll lower the price in the U.S. That'll reduce the price of an important input for making cherry pie filling. You need cherries to do that. And so we are going to expect this will lead to an increase in supply. If there's an increase in supply, we're going to get, that worked. We're going to get an increase in supply is going to decrease the price, increase the quantity. We're thinking of like flooding the market as being maybe how we'd envision this. All right, so then we have Caleb, who runs a dog walking service, initially charging a uniform price to all consumers. When identifying a group of potential customers in a lower income neighborhood, decides to charge them a lower price, still above marginal cost, but below the reservation price, while keeping the price he charges to existing customers the same. As a result, what happens to consumer surplus, producer surplus, and total surplus? We could almost think of this a little bit as group pricing. So from the sophisticated pricing chapter, basically what's happening is the original market's staying the same, still doing single price monopoly pricing, but for this new market, comprised of those in the lower income neighborhood, there's going to be a lower price. As a result, their consumer surplus is going to, as a result, consumer surplus is going to increase because there's going to be more economic activity. He'll be serving these customers who otherwise wouldn't have been served at the original price. They're kind of priced out of the market at this discount. Now they're able to buy the dog walking service, and so they generate consumer surplus they wouldn't have had relative to the price he was charging original customers. So that rises. Producer surplus is going to increase. Now he's going to have more profits because he's got more customers, right? We're told selling at a price above his marginal cost, right? And so there's going to be profits generated on each of these units or each of the new customers served. There's going to be a profit margin. And as a result, total surplus is going to rise too. And so we're going to get increase, increase, increase. All right. So let's see. Holds a doctorate in neuroscience from UCLA, former main character in Big Bang Theory, earned hundreds of thousands of dollars per episode, later became the host of Jeopardy for a while. Why work in television instead of neuroscience? Oh, we'd say the opportunity cost of working as a neuroscientist is high, right? The foregone ability to what? Earn income working as in TV. All right, so absolute advantage in acting, that doesn't fit. Neuroscientists don't enjoy gains from trading their profession. Wouldn't that be sad? That's not true. Doesn't benefit from specialization in either industry? No, benefits from specialization according to comparative advantage, which is going to be in working in TV. Which is an example of government reducing adverse selection by eliminating the lowest quality products in the market. So requiring sellers reveal to buyers any known flaws. This is something government can do, and it reduces adverse selection, but this is via mandating the release of information. So requiring a skill or knowledge-based license to offer the product or service, sure, yeah, that will do it. This will eliminate the lowest quality products in the market. So, if you're going to hire a contractor to, fix something on the house or new construction or something along those lines, there's licenses that they've got to have. They've got to have insurance too, but this makes sure that whoever's going to be selling these contractor services have a license via the state or the local area. They meet some minimum quality threshold so that you know that they're probably going to get the job done, probably get it done correctly. Offer accurate information to buyers. This is again just like A. And then allowing firms to go out of business if they have insufficient customers. I mean, that doesn't really have anything to do with adverse selection, but government should definitely let businesses go, firms go out of business if they don't have enough customers. Okay, so which of the following might cause a supply curve for an inferior good to shift to the right? So we want to know what's going to cause supply to shift to the right. We ignore everything else. Supply curve is going to be the same for a normal or inferior good. So we're looking for things that'll shift the supply curve. An increase in input prices, well, that'll shift the supply curve, but it'll shift it in the wrong direction. It'll shift it to the left. Decrease in the number of sellers, same as A and B are the same in terms of leftward shift to supply. Decrease in consumer income, this would lead to an increase, a rightward shift of the demand curve, but we care about the supply curve. An improvement in production technology makes production of the good more profitable. Yeah, that'll do it. Lower wages in Taiwan reflect lower labor productivity in Taiwan than the US. This means if high-tech companies in the US were to move to Taiwan, the overall cost of production would be higher in Taiwan than the US. You want to locate where you've got highly productive workers if you have high-tech companies. Right? So lower, higher. Following game represents the strategic interaction involving two students walking towards each other down the hallway. One's walking down the hallway towards the south, the other's walking up the hallway towards the north. As they approach and wish to pass by each other, each has two strategies. They can walk on the east, or they can walk on the west side of the hallway. So cardinal directions, there's one single east, one single west, right? So you could both walk on the east, then you're going to bump into each other. You could both walk on the west, then you're going to bump into each other, or do that sort of awkward dance around each other, I guess. It works best if you use a different but complementary strategy. I go to the east, they go to the west, and then we walk by each other harmlessly. That's an anti-coordination game. A coordination game is where you're using the same strategy. Anti-coordination game from the Stevenson-Wolfers text and from class is where you're using a different but complementary strategy. Suppose you want to show that rent controls have a high impact on number of families that can find apartments. It'll help your argument if you can show in the market for apartments, supply is elastic. So you can draw a picture. I've got this right here. But what you want to do is draw, oh, this is probably going to be backwards. Shoot. So I drew a very steep demand curve and I drew a very flat supply curve. And the idea is you're looking to see what happens to the market after the distortion of the price control. So draw the steep demand, draw a flat supply curve, draw the equilibrium quantity, then draw in the binding price ceiling, which is the rent control, and then you're going to find out the quantity supplied is going to be further to the left, closer to zero, than the quantity demanded, which means there's going to be a large number of people unable to find houses find apartments because there's simply not going to be apartments available. The number wanting to be able to find apartments is going to be given by QD. The number available is going to be given by QS. You might have thought, well, what if demand is really elastic? And that's fine, except for the limiting factor and the thing that's actually going to be moving things in the market is going to be the distance between QS and Q star, because there's never going to be more available than Q star, the original equilibrium, but whatever is going to be the smaller of quantity supplied or quantity demanded is going to be the amount actually traded. Here, that's the quantity supplied. And so that's our binding factor, so to speak. We want to make quantity supplied as small relative to Q star as possible. That happens with a flat supply curve. So if supply is relatively elastic, and you can draw the other pictures and see that you won't get the same type of distortion. Actually, this is really reminiscent of the elasticity and minimum wage impact question from previously. Selling at prices far above marginal cost, yeah, it's legal. You can sell at prices far above marginal cost. You can have a huge markup. Common misconception, it's not illegal to be a monopoly, though it's illegal to do monopoly things, so to speak, right? Monopolization. So predatory pricing or anti-competitive acquisition of market power, leveraging market power from one market into another, call that tying. Anyway, so if a resource is already owned, the opportunity cost of using up that resource in a production process is the current value of the resource in its next best use, right? Opportunity cost is the value of your next highest alternative. So it's not the cost of acquisition, that's a sunk cost. It's not the current value of the output created by the resource, because opportunities aren't what you get, they're what you get to lose, what you give up. And it's not the cost of the other resources used together with the original resource to create the output, because we're interested in the opportunity cost of using up that specific resource. So it's not, D is like invoking all the other possible costs. They might themselves be opportunity costs, but of their own use, not of this particular resource that we're considering. Which could plausibly cause an increase in demand for DoorDash deliveries. So the price of DoorDash delivery orders has fallen. Nope, that's going to give a change in quantity demanded. We want a change in demand. A new school year has begun. Students return to campus. Sure, that could increase quantity. Quantity demanded at all possible prices. It's an increase in demand due to the change in the number of buyers. If there's an increase in the use of AI technology, makes DoorDash deliveries cheaper to produce. This will affect the supply curve, not the demand curve. Matter of fact, that might even be a reason for why the price of orders would fall. There's a rise in consumer income. Well, that's good, only DoorDash deliveries are an inferior good. That's bad. So increase in income is going to give us a decrease in demand. And so of these, the only one that could plausibly increase demand would be number 2, B. Suppose we were to play the following game in class for money, paid in real dollars. Each student writes their strategy on an index card. I collect and match in random pairs. I offer you the ability to pay to look at your partner's card after they've made their selection. Prior to making your own choice, what's the highest amount of money you could optimally pay for this information? In the last week of class, we did this. We gave this away. The answer is 0. You shouldn't pay anything for it. Why? Well, this game is a prisoner's dilemma. And in a prisoner's dilemma, both players have a uniformly best response. So in Stevenson and Wolfer's language, we might call this the capital BEST, best response. But in standard game theory verbiage, we'd call it a dominant strategy. In any case, you've always got this, of your two strategies, low and high, you've always got the incentive to set high as your strategy. right? So we can check and see this. So we've got one student controlling the columns. We've got one student controlling the rows. So suppose they have selected the left column. You are choosing between low and high. The first payoff goes to row player, so you'd rather get high. So your best response to low is high. What if they have selected the right column? Now you're choosing between 1 by saying high or 0 by saying low. You'd rather say high. Oh, in both cases, you want to say high. So does it matter what your co-player has done? No. Right? You could look at their card. You could buy that from me. It'll be worth, that information is worth exactly 0 because it's not going to change what you're going to do. You're going to choose high either way. All right. So why is an expert hairstylist more likely to price discriminate than an expert jam maker? Haircut can't be resold, right? One of our requirements for price discrimination is you've got to be able to block resale. You've got to be able to identify demanders based on their different willingness to pay. And you have to have the requisite information to make that happen. But key amongst those is you got to be able to block resale. You can block resale for haircuts really easily. You can't block resale for a jar of jam as easily. You work for a consumer organization seeking to bring about lower prices through increased trade. Your duties include developing a pro-trade lobbying campaign. One argument you might include is that when trade is restricted, blank benefits, but blank is worse off. Okay, so when trade is restricted, we could think from the standpoint of the importing situation. Well, if we have tariffs, if we limit imports, this will benefit a small number of workers, those in the domestic producing industry affected by the tariff, but all consumers are worse off. Well, all consumers of that good are worse off. Right? Which of the following decreases in response to the tax on a good? Equilibrium quantity in the market for the good, that will decrease. The effective price of the good paid by buyers, nope, that will rise. Consumer surplus, that will fall. The equilibrium quantity in the market, yeah, that'll fall. Producer surplus, that will fall. And the well-being of buyers, yep, consumer surplus will fall. Yeah, that's the best answer. Effective price received by sellers of the good, that'll fall. The wedge between the effective price paid by buyers and the effective price received by sellers, no, that will rise. That wedge is 0 when there's no tax, but if there's a tax, then it's the size of the tax. And so the wedge increases. No, that's wrong. Which of the following would be expected to shift the supply curve for corn to the left? Increasing the price of corn? Well, that's not going to really affect. That's not going to affect supply by shifting it. That's going to give us a different quantity supplied. So that's why it's not this one. An increase in the price of inputs used in the production of corn? Sure. Increasing the price of an important input will lead to a decrease in supply. Flooding in corn growing regions leads to crop damage? Sure. Yeah, there's going to be fewer sellers in that market. And so B and C are both correct. So the option we want is D, B and C only. Because we don't want A, because that'll give us a change in quantity supplied, not a change in supply. It's generally agreed pollution is undesirable. Social welfare is increased by reducing pollution. As such, the optimal level of pollution in society is the level at which the marginal social cost of pollution equals the marginal social benefit. That's just the rational rule for society. Let's see. So we've got a personal trainer. They've got a workout guide. There's a downloadable PDF, but there's revenue that's been lost because people were sharing with friends instead of buying it. So as a solution, created an app which allowed users to only access workouts if they have a paying account with an active subscription. This also detected password sharing. How did this solve the issue with the product? Oh, it eliminated a free rider problem, made the product excludable. Suppose P star is the equilibrium price of cherries. The government can control the price. If the government wants to maximize cherry sales, it should set the market price equal to the equilibrium price. Anything else is going to lead to a distortion. If you set the price lower than P star, now the quantity demanded will be greater than the quantity supplied, and the quantity supplied will be the limiting factor for how much will actually be traded. If you set the price higher than P star, then the quantity supplied is bigger than the quantity demanded, but the quantity demanded will be the limiting factor, and it'll be fewer cherry sales than if you had just set price equal to P star. Which of the following causes an increase in supply of iPhones? Apple develops a new assembly line technology that increases all of its production costs. No, this will decrease the supply. Consumer incomes fall and iPhones are a normal good. This will increase demand. Price of iPads falls. That will work. So then you decrease your quantity supplied of iPads, increase your supply of iPhones, a substitute in production. Or if you expect future prices of iPhones are going to be lower, then you want to sell them today. So it'll lead to an immediate increase in supply. These are both correct, and so I accepted both C and D for all versions of the question, or all versions of the exam. Consider the following demand relationship. Price is equal to 10 minus Q. We know total revenue is maximized by producing 5 units at a price of $5. When a firm facing this demand curve wishes to sell 6 units, we can say, so this is the exercise we used in class. This is the example we used in class, and I uploaded like a worked out version of this to the course page. Which of the following is correct? It is total revenue is going to fall by 1 due to the discount effect being greater than the output effect. So total revenue at selling 6 units at a price of $4 is going to be $24, which is 1 less than $25 where you're selling 5 at a price of 5. And remember, when you're selling an additional unit, there's 2 effects. There's the output effect. That's the $4 from selling the 6th unit. You're selling the 6th unit. Total revenue is increasing by $4 because you're selling another unit now for $4. But then there's the discount effect. We're going to sell the previous 5 units each for $1 cheaper. And so overall, we're going to lose $5, we'll gain $4, and total revenue falls by $1 due to the discount effect being greater than the output effect. Okay, so suppose the demand for diamonds is very elastic, supply is very inelastic, which causes the greatest increase in consumption. Oh, if demand is very responsive, what do we want to do? We want to shift supply, right? That'll give us if we shift supply to the right, that'll give us a lower price and a larger quantity demanded, and it'll move the farthest if it is supply moving along our elastic demand curve. You could draw a whole bunch of pictures, kind of like before. If you draw pictures for each of these, you'll see it's got to be A. If you value my Harbaugh trading card at $10, you buy it from me for $2, and the economic surplus to you as a buyer is blank. You sell it to your roommate for $15. Your economic surplus as a seller is blank, and my economic surplus as a seller is blank. Well, we don't know what my surplus is because I didn't say anything about my costs. We do know your valuation was 10, your price was 8, so you're going to get 2. So now we know we're looking at C and D. And then lastly, what's going to be your economic surplus? Well, you paid 8, so then that's going to be your costs. You sold it to your roommate for 15, so then your profits, basically, your markup, it's going to be 7. Right? So the answer is D. All right, so here's the hallway game. So we have one student walking down the hallway towards the south, another walking up the hallway towards the north. As they approach, they pass by each other. Find all Nash equilibria. So I accepted 2 answers here. They're actually identical. The 2 equilibria are where you're going west and they're going east, or you're going east and they're going west. You can find this by best response. If they've chosen the east side of the hallway, you want to choose the west side. If they've chosen the west side, you want to choose the east side. And then vice versa. If you choose the east side, they want to choose the west side. If you choose the west side, they want to choose the east side. If you're watching where I highlighted both of these and both of these. Those are both Nash equilibria. And so it's B and D. And I accepted both on all versions of the exam. Why might an electricity provider be a natural monopoly? Because once the company installs electricity lines in the neighborhood, the cost of providing additional electric service to one more home is low. We talked about natural monopolies in class. We said this is a situation where there's a really large fixed cost of operating in the first place, but a really low marginal cost of serving one more customer. So the idea is you have to establish this entire network, but once you've got this network established, once you've got the electricity lines, power lines to a neighborhood, the cost of serving one more house is almost 0. Suppose the U.S. places a tariff on imported wood. As a result of the tariff, the domestic price will rise, consumer surplus will fall, and producer surplus will rise. So that we have an import situation. The tariff moves us closer to the unconstrained equilibrium, or the no trade, the domestic equilibrium where there's no trade at all. The tariff moves us in that direction, so the price rises. It comes at the expense of consumer surplus. We gain producer surplus for the domestic industry. Competitive firms differ from monopolies in which of the following ways? All of them. Marginal revenue for a competitive firm equals price. Marginal revenue for a monopoly is less than the price it's able to charge. That's because of the discount effect. Monopolies must lower the price in order to sell one more product, while competitive firms do not. That's because of the downward sloping demand curve, which then gives rise to the discount effect. Competitive firms do not have to worry about the discount effect lowering their total revenue. Nope, they don't, because they're going to sell each additional unit for exactly the market price. A price ceiling is most likely to increase efficiency if the market's not competitive. Right? So if the market's already competitive, then we're going to distort, we're going to lead to inefficiency, consumer producer surplus will fall, there'll be deadweight loss. However, if we already have a market that's not competitive, so there's market power, now that price ceiling might bring us back closer to the competitive equilibrium. Remember, this one of the justifications for, or one of the ways the government could kind of improve market functioning was like in the case where you might have a natural monopoly, you're protecting the monopoly, such as the power company, because additional firms entering the market, in that case, competition's bad in the case of a natural monopoly, but you don't want the incumbent firm to be able to just, charge exorbitant prices for consumers. So there might be some type of regulation, it might be coming in the form of a price ceiling that might bring the market price closer to what a competitive market would have done could the competitive market efficiently serve that market in that particular industry. Damon's wage rises via the substitution effect, work more, via the income effect, work less. Which statement is true? A firm with economic profits will also have accounting profits. On a demand and supply graph, if a tax is implemented on a buyer, the vertical distance between the old and new demand curves at the new equilibrium quantity will be equivalent to the size of the tax, right? We said the distance between the demand curve at the original demand curve and then the new tax-inclusive demand curve is everywhere going to be the size of the tax. If the tax is implemented on a seller, the vertical distance between the old supply curve and new supply curve would also be the amount of the tax. The term fast fashion refers to low-quality clothing items produced as cheaply as possible in mass quantities. As a buyer typically only wears each fast fashion item a few times, fast fashion industry creates extra factory pollution and landfill waste. The market price of fast fashion t-shirt is $12. The marginal external cost is $2.50 per shirt. What's the marginal social cost? Well, remember, this is a negative externality situation. If there's a negative externality, we expect the competitive market on its own is going to deliver overproduction, too much of whatever is creating the negative externality, in this case, too much fast fashion. So what's going to happen? Well, the producers are going to be producing and the buyers are going to be buying up to the point where the marginal private cost equals the marginal private benefit. The marginal private cost is going to capture production costs, but then to that we add the marginal external cost to bring us to the marginal social cost, right? So this $14.50 is marginal social cost, which is the sum of marginal private cost, which we get from the market price because we've produced up to the point where marginal private cost equals marginal private benefit, plus the marginal external cost. If we were to perform Porter's 5 forces on the airlines, possibility of Zoom replacing business travel as the threat of substitutes, right? Substitutes we're thinking about outside of the industry. If we were thinking about the possibility of customers switching to Delta Airlines, that would be competitive rivalry. If we were thinking about the threat of FedEx or UPS using their planes for domestic passenger travel, that'd be threat of entry. But here we're thinking something outside the industry. Zoom here would be threat of substitutes. One key problem offering divorce insurance would be adverse selection of buyers. So the buyers would have more information about the likelihood of them getting a divorce than would be the seller. Firm's average revenue curve is the same as the firm's demand curve. It comes from the slides. Following game represents strategic interaction of two students walking towards each other down a hallway. One student walks towards the south, the other will walk up towards the north. Since they'll pass by each other, each has two strategies, walk on the east or walk on the left. If both walk on the east or both walk on the west, each receives a payoff of 0. If they walk on different sides, the student on the east receives a payoff of 2 and the student on the west receives a payoff of 1. I don't know, maybe the east side has glass windows and you can see the sunrise. Who knows? Assume one student enters the hallway first and makes their selection before the other student. Which of the following are true? So you want to draw out the game tree for this. This is probably the easiest way to be able to visualize what's going on. And so we could draw the game tree. I don't know if this is going to let me do this. This is super disappointing. Maybe I'm going to have to draw it on my paper, I guess. You know what? So I kind of immediately regretted doing this, but now I'm maybe changing my mind. Yeah, this isn't so bad. Okay, so shoot. So this is going to be east, and this is going to be, well, this will also be east, and this will be west, and this will be west for our other player, and this will be west for this player. No, this will be east for this player. Yeah, I definitely should have just drawn this out, but I didn't. So now I'm pretty well. I mean, it's a sunk cost, right? Like, really what I should do is just delete this and sketch this thing pretty quick, but fine. So this was where they get 0, 0. Actually, like, I'm probably actually would be further ahead still by quitting now. Maybe up until I do this one. Because I could draw the thing pretty fast. Except, nope. If you remember, that's going to be way worse because it'll show backwards. So I'd have to draw the mirror version of it, which I could do. But not fast enough. Okay, so what's going to happen here? We want the higher payoffs to whoever's gone east, right? So whoever's gone east is going to get 2. The first payoff goes to our player 1. Second payoff goes to player 2. That's our standard convention, right? So what's going to happen? Well, at the end of this game, my player 2 is going to choose between either west or east. Yep, they'd rather go east, and so I can prune off. I don't know. This is the way that I've drawn this is not nearly as good. You'll be able to do this better on your own sheet, but I'm just going to say my player 2 is like not going to choose west because they don't want that 0. They'd rather have this 2. And similarly, player 2 is not going to choose east because they don't want that 0. They want this 1. Then my player 1 looking forward is going to say, oh, if I do east, I'm going to get 2. If I go west, I'm going to get 1. So I'm going to prune off this one. And player 1 is able to guarantee themselves a 2 by going first by selecting east. So this is a game with a single Nash equilibrium that we found via backward induction. Actually, this is the sub-game perfect Nash equilibrium for this game. So it's a game with a single Nash equilibrium as described, and it's a game with a first mover advantage because our player can get 2 rather than getting 1 or 0, and they can deterministically get 2 by just selecting east. All right, so let's see if I can put this away. Still scroll. Hey, that's pretty cool. All right, so when prospective apartment renters have private information, they know more about how costly they're going to be to the rental management company than the company has. This is adverse selection of buyers. Have access to information about the rental management company the company would prefer to keep private? No. I mean, we're using private information in the sense of asymmetric information, right? And so this B is not an economic sense of interpreting private information. Tend to favor more specialized treatment for the rental management. I don't know what that means. Are at a disadvantage in renting apartments. When they have private information, they're at a disadvantage in renting apartments. No, they're at an advantage. They have information that they don't want to share. Now, if the rental company had private information, then the prospective renters would have a disadvantage. But they're the ones with the private information. Whoever's got the private information has the advantage. A firm with market power produces less than the socially efficient quantity of output at a higher price than the competitive market, right? They restrict output, drive up the price, and they maintain this over time. And that's where the firm's profits are coming from relative to the competitive market. Under the hurdle method of price discrimination, a seller gives a lower price only to those who are price sensitive by requiring price-sensitive buyers to do something extra, to go over the hurdle to get a lower price. Identify a characteristic about those who are price-sensitive and give them group discounts. Now, this would be like group discounts. Identifying those who are price-sensitive by the goods they buy and discounting those goods only. No, this would be like a different type of second-degree price discrimination. This wouldn't, like, hurdle method is part of second-degree price discrimination, but there's nothing here that would make this specifically the hurdle method. Choosing a discount pattern so that every 5th or 100th or whatever customer receives a discount, no. You're interviewing for a job as a programmer, have a salary offer from your preferred company, iHeart, for $85K. You have an offer from Spotify for $87K. iHeart has an equally qualified applicant willing to only accept a salary of $90K who has more bargaining power. You do, because you have the Spotify offer to allow you to negotiate a higher salary with iHeart. Now, if the Spotify offer was $97,000, then you would not have better bargaining power because they would have somebody who's willing to accept an offer lower than that, right? But here you have their two lowest, I don't know, like reservation prices. And so you'll outbid, basically, in some sense, this other candidate by willing to accept a lower offer. And so, yeah, so you're able to use your Spotify offer. You do because iHeart's next best alternative is better than hiring you? Nope. iHeart because the other applicant is willing to accept a higher salary than you? Nope. And iHeart because you have no best alternative? No. Well, you have a best alternative. Suppose an economist knows little about the supply and demand in the market for free-range chickens, eggs, but wanted to estimate demand, the elasticity of supply. Want to estimate elasticity of supply by observing price and quantity over time. Okay, so price elasticity of supply measures the responsiveness of changes in quantity supplied to changes in price. So we need price to change, and we need quantity supplied to change, and then we want to be able to determine that responsiveness. So we need a movement along the supply curve. Okay, so it can't be both curves moving because we need supply to stay where it is. Can't be both curves staying fixed because then we don't have any changes in price to be able to estimate. The supply curve shifts frequently, but demand curve remains fixed? No, because if supply is moving, we're not getting a change in price or a change in quantity supplied, but a change in the whole curve. And actually, we're going to get a change in price and change in quantity demanded. C would be excellent for trying to estimate elasticity of demand. But we want demand to move along the supply curve, generating a movement along the supply curve. You could draw the picture and then you'll see it. Assume coffee and tea are substitutes. Coffee is made from coffee beans. If there's a big coffee bean harvest, we expect there's going to be an increase in supply of coffee beans. That's going to lead to a lower price of coffee beans. That'll give us a reduction in the price of a very important input in making coffee. And so as a result, there's going to be an increase in supply of coffee. That'll flood the market. There'll be a lower price. Lower price of coffee means people are going to switch from relatively more expensive tea into coffee. And as a result, there'll be a decrease in demand for tea. And so we're getting a decrease in price of coffee due to the increase in supply of coffee, and a decrease in price of tea due to the decrease in demand for tea. Consider the following relationship, same as before, price is equal to 10 minus Q. This is the only demand relationship that we really worked with in great detail in class. This is the one I uploaded, like kind of a version of this. Anyway, so what's the largest quantity the firm can produce without losing the money in the sense of negative economic profits? Okay, so we're looking for where producer surplus would go negative. Producer surplus would be zero if they produce where price equals marginal cost. And then the corresponding quantity at price equals marginal cost would be 8. So the competitive market, where there's zero producer surplus, would set price equal to 2 and set a quantity of 8. If we produce more than 8 units, we're producing more than the competitive quantity. We're going to have to sell at a price of, say if we made 9 units, we'd have to sell at a price of $1. Well, that's a problem because if we're selling at a price of $1, our costs were 2, right? And so now we're going to have a loss. So the answer is E8. If Canada announces it's going to begin selling a large stock of diamonds, what do we expect is going to happen to the market for diamonds? There's going to be an increase in supply in the future. So price will fall in the future. What do we expect is going to happen now? Well, now we'll get a leftward shift to demand. People are going to expect there's going to be a lower price in the future. Why would we want to buy it now? So we're going to get a losing interest. Demand's going to shift to the left. Price and quantity both fall. Then in the future, when the market's been flooded with these cheap diamonds, then people buy their diamonds. Okay, so we have corner gas and super fuel. We have a pricing strategy. I'll put a high price on my gas since that's what Steven's doing, but if he lowers his price, I'll lower mine and keep it there. All right, so Is this the best response? It could be. We don't know because we don't know payoffs. And so we don't know that Connor is best responding. We just know what Connor says Connor's going to do. Grim trigger strategy? Sure. Yeah, this is the best answer here. So I'll put a high price. Grim trigger is start off pricing high, start off cooperating. Then if they defect, we defect forever, right? Lower my price and keep it there. Right? Irrational strategy? We don't know. It could be a best response. It could also be a really silly thing to do. We have no idea without knowing payoffs. Follow the leader strategy? I don't know what that is, but it's not that. Another name for private information is asymmetric information. From class, from the reading or whatever, thinking about asymmetric information for private information. Yeah, personal information is another name for private information, but not in economics. Non-public, okay, but not in economics, right? We're thinking like what's going to be in the context of what we're interested in. Collusive information? No. Right, that's an economic term, so that's good, but that's not, it doesn't have anything. At the moment here, collusion doesn't have anything to do with anything. So as output increases, fixed costs stay constant. Average fixed costs would fall, but fixed costs stay the same, right? This is like the factory space, or for my cookie factory example, it's like, the storefront, the mixer, ovens, and so on and so forth. Doesn't matter, like if you're producing one batch or a million, your fixed costs of acquiring those things is the same. Let's see. So family had a bed and breakfast. They lobbied local town council for regulations against Airbnb. Oh, this is government regulations, right? So think of the slide of the fence and all the barriers to entry. There's demand side, supply side, deterrence, government regulations, not detergents, right? That's like doing laundry or something. So it's government regulations. Suppose good weather improves Traverse City's cherry crop at the same time the price of cherries rises. What explains this combination? Well, the good weather is going to increase supply. That'll tend towards increasing quantity and lowering the price. But if we have price also rising, we need something that would have caused price to rise. Supply cherries rose. Nope, that's probably what happened with good weather. That'll lead to a lower price. Pesticides become less expensive. Nope, that'll also increase supply. No further explanation? No, because this weather is going to give us a lower price and higher quantity. Demand for cherry pies, right, could rise. And as demand for cherry pies rises, this will increase the demand for cherries, which would then be a derived demand, right, derived from the demand for cherries. Either way, there's going to be an increase in demand of cherries. The other way, without thinking about derived demand, you could think of cherries as being a complement with cherry pies, whatever. So you're the manager at this sweat studio, and there's closing duties to 2 team members. Let's see. So which one we want to know the opportunity cost of folding towels in terms of sauna rooms. So in 12 minutes, we can fold all the towels, or in 9 minutes, we can clean a sauna room. So let's see. We want to know the opportunity cost of folding towels. So this is 12 minutes. How much? So there's couple different ways to think about this. I like that you could just say, here's 10 minutes and then, or here's an hour available, like how many towels and how many saunas, and then you could do like a table or something. I'd rather just say, okay, 12 minutes. How does this compare? How does the time requirement necessary to do towels compare to the time requirement necessary to do rooms? So I'd say, okay, in 12 minutes, I could do towels, or I could do 133%, right, of rooms. It's like 1.33 of the time necessary to do rooms. That's a little awkward. Maybe it's easier to do the math the other way. I can say 9 minutes is all the time necessary to clean a room, but it's only 75% of the time necessary to clean towels, right? 3/4 of the time. So that's my opportunity cost of a room is 3/4 the time of towels. And we know the opportunity cost of towels is going to be the reciprocal of 3/4. And so that'll give me the 4/3 or 1.33. I don't know. A price floor is going to, what effect will that have on the quantity traded and the price floor? That's going to reduce the quantity traded because at the higher price, there's going to be a lower quantity demanded. So the quantity traded will be smaller than the equilibrium quantity, right? You could draw the picture and you'd see this. It's like the minimum wage example. And what it'll do to the price, it'll raise the price. So the best answer here is A. Okay, so this brings us to the end. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found it useful, I'll go ahead and conclude here. I'll see you next time.